This episode of Star Trek includes scenes of sexual assault. Therefore, this episode of Humanist Trek includes discussions of this topic. Listener discretion is advised.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain. Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on?
I'm James Kirk. These people are my friends and my shipmates. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Hey everybody, welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And as you're listening to this, I am probably kicking back with the kids, dropping Becca off she's going to DC for the weekend for a work meeting. And it's just going to be me and the kids.
Fun. Don't get in any trouble.
So fun.
Behave.
It's great. Right. I'm so looking forward to it. I love my kids. I do. But sometimes. So yeah, that's my weekend. This does not happen very often that we're apart. And so a little weird, you know.
Yeah. By the time this releases, it'll be 1 week before my cruise, the Star Trek cruise. I'm still waiting on like a couple of things to come in the mail to be delivered that I ordered for one of my cosplays. So I really need to just start packing now. Yeah. It's just because I'm so afraid I'm going to forget something. And if I forget it, I'm screwed. So.
Yeah. That's not a good feeling either. Like, especially if you built it up in your mind about like, oh, how great this is going to be. And then you forget some key piece. Yeah.
And then, I'm going to make a list and then pack and then unpack and pack again, just to make sure and try to just think of everything. But I'm excited. The chat boards are excited. Everyone's excited. And I'm getting a lot of good information from people who've been on the cruise before.
Nice.
So that's always helpful.
Hopefully, when you get on the ship, they don't put you in cryostasis and shoot you off into space. Let's talk about Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 23, Space Seed, the one with Khan.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Basuda. Yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
So this episode opens with a classic, like, on the bridge, we're coming up on something fast scene. And this time it's a space vessel, and Spock suggests it's not likely to be an Earth ship out here since there haven't been any flights into this area for years. But Uhura picks up a signal, and it's old school Morse code.
So she starts reading it out aloud, like CQ, and then Kirk kind of gets like snippy with her.
Yeah.
It's like, we can read it. And I'm like, don't treat her that way. Don't treat my sister that way. No.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. He told Spock that I thought you said it couldn't be an Earth vessel. It's giving us Morse code. And Spock says, well, it seems it gives you great pleasure to see me proven wrong. And Kirk says, oh, it's an emotional Earth weakness of mine.
Now we have a visual on this ship, and Kirk and Spock, apparently both kind of wonks when it comes to historical space vessels of the 1990s, argue about what class vessel this is. Kirk assumes the ship must be a derelict, and the SOS was just left on all these years, and Spock suggests it might be an old Earth ship being used by aliens now. That would have been a fun premise to play out.
Yeah.
Kirk calls McCoy, who says he's reading heartbeats over there, but they can't be human. They're too faint and too slow.
4 beats a minute.
McCoy joins us on the bridge now, and KSM have a classic chat around the captain's chair. There's like 60 or 70 bodies over there showing some type of heart activity. Spock's been able to read the sticker on the side of the ship, SS Botany Bay.
Botany Bay. Botany Bay.
It is at this point that I will mention, since I'm going to put in the drop of Chekhov saying Botany Bay, that you will note Chekhov has not joined the cast yet. So therefore, when Khan says he remembers him in The Wrath of Khan, he says to Chekhov, I remember you. It can't possibly be because Chekhov hasn't joined the show yet.
Oh, that's a little bit of they forgot something.
Sure.
That's cool.
Of course, the retcon is like Chekhov was on the ship somewhere. He just wasn't bridge crew yet.
That could be. That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
But technically, he wasn't even part of like the cast yet.
Right.
Right.
Right. Spock says there's no record of that vessel in the computer, although records from that period aren't very good because the mid-90s was the end of our last so-called World War.
Spock calls it a strange and violent period in our history. And I guess like we're behind the expectations of Star Trek because like the 1990s were pretty cool. But according to Star Trek, we were supposed to be having a eugenics war.
Yeah. And, it's a case of sci-fi futures catching up to reality and just being way off.
I guess that's where they thought we would be at that time.
With space travel and stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. McCoy's like, oh, yes, the eugenic wars. And Spock's real judgy about this. He's like, your attempt to improve humanity through selective breeding.
McCoy like takes offense. He's like, no, it's not our attempt. It was a group of ambitious scientists. And he's like, oh, I'm sure you know the type, devoted to logic, unemotional.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk is like, okay, put your dick back in your pants.
Break it up.
They go. They're about to start again.
So Kirk breaks them up. Kirk hands over command to Spock while he takes McCoy on an away team to the Botany Bay. And Kirk tells Spock that he'll need someone very familiar with late 20th century Earth. I assume, of course, this will be our sex object guest star of the week.
Of course.
Of course. Kirk even gets her name wrong because, of course, he does.
He's like Spock. What's her name? McGivers.
Yeah.
And Spock corrects him and says it's MacGyver's.
Sure enough, cut to crew quarters where Marla MacGyvers is walking in to work on her current painting in progress, and she starts to.
That's what all historians do.
Of course,
they fucking paint.
Well, again, when you're not tied to the wheel of capitalism, you're free to indulge in your interests when you're not working.
Imagine that.
She puts on this thing that kind of looks like an apron, but also like lingerie to do this, like a painting apron, I guess. But it looked like it could also be lingerie. The intercom rings and she's ordered to report to the transporter room. And she's like, fuck.
Now, I was just starting to...
Damn it. Right, I'm not supposed to be on call tonight. Kirk and Bones are in the transporter room now, and Scotty's like, that's odd. It looks like that ship is expecting you. The heat is coming on, and I'm reading an oxygen atmosphere. Good thing, because I'm not sure we have any more of those nebulizer masks. This is the first real instance we've gotten of McCoy's super deep hatred of the transporter. He says he signed up for this mission to practice medicine, not to have his atoms scattered all over by this gadget. MacGyver's enters the transporter room, and Kirk gives her some male gaze before making it obvious he doesn't even know her name. Scotty starts beaming them over, and we cut to the interior of the Botany Bay and the image of a comely young woman in an extremely tight cat suit with some perky, pointy Madonna boobs.
Pointy boobs, yeah.
So maybe she's the sex object of the episode? How many competing sex objects can one show have in the late 1960s?
I know. Well, the men were also very skimpily clad as well. They were like in these gold Speedos and this gold fishnet covering. So yeah, I was like, good.
The camera pans around and we see that there are others aboard, all seemingly asleep in these sort of bunk bed alcove things. And our crew beam in, and Scotty's with them? I thought I saw Scotty a moment ago operate the transporter to beam them out.
Yeah,
but now Scotty's with them.
Yeah. He confirms that the vessel is like Earth origin and that they're using some old style atomic power computers with transistor units. He says, I'd love to tear this baby apart. So then MacGyver's is doing her little job because they didn't bring her in just for eye candy. She's like, I think the ship is a sleeper ship designed for long periods of interplanetary travel due to the limits of space travel technology in that era until 2018.
2018.
So we're still behind.
What a hopeful view of the future they had,
I
though,
know.
didn't they?
Yeah, so we should have had a World War III in 1990s, and we should have done cryogenics by now.
And common space travel. Yeah.
Right, and space travel.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're close to that. If you're rich enough, you can buy a seat on Elon's rocket or something.
Yeah, you could buy a little seat on the penis to space.
Kirk asks if it's possible that these people are still alive after centuries of travel. And McCoy notes that systems like this were never tested for that long a duration.
And MacGyver says something weird here. She's like, what a handsome group of people.
Yeah. And she's taken kind of by all of them. And I guess you're supposed to believe that this is just like someone who's very excited with the work that they do in their field.
History.
Yeah, right. Suddenly, the lights come on and they notice some changes in one of the alcoves. McCoy's getting new readings. This person's heart rate is beginning to increase and signs of respiration are showing. And Scotty suggests that perhaps this alcove was programmed to wake up first.
And Kirk asks MacGyver's cool, could this be the leader? And she's smitten with the dude. She's staring at him and he's got to hey, come back to Earth. And she's like, it could be that it was designed for the leader's pod to wake up first. So it could very well be. And then she's looking at him physically and she's like, he could be Sikh. He could be from North India. And she's like, but they were the most fantastic warriors. So she's, kind of fawning over this unconscious dude. And then Scotty looks around and he starts reporting that there are 84 people of all kinds of different ethnic regions or whatever, origins. And one of the terms he uses is Oriental.
Yes.
Brian Body, where you been? The term is Asian American.
And now we don't use that anymore. I know Obama, in 2016, he signed a bill prohibiting the use of the term Oriental in all federal documents.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes. But yeah, it's now considered offensive and a slur. So,
right.
But that was the time. It was in the 60s. So,
yeah. Suddenly something goes wrong, and Ricardo Montalban, our actual sex object of the episode.
Yeah, it's not a woman for once.
Ricardo's heartbeat starts falling again, and there's some flashy lights and sparks from the alcove. So they agree that we got to get him out of here to save his life.
He's gonna die.
So Kirk runs over the little hammer behind the glass with the brake in case of emergency,
The fireman.
And he smashes the glass of the alcove. So they get this chamber opened and out slides Ricardo and he starts to kind of come to, but he's having a hard time speaking. But he's got enough that he can, Kirk can make out. He's asking how long he's been asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk tells him it's been about 2 centuries.
He's super tan,
and
he's got long hair, and he's, half naked. So yes, eye candy for the women.
Mm-hmm.
It's about time someone else was objectified. But yeah, he's I don't know if he was really that dark. It's probably makeup though at that
point. Might have been, I think. Yeah. So Kirk radios Uhura and has her get the transporter room standing by. McCoy's beaming back with a casualty, and MacGyver says, magnificent, all dreamy-eyed and shit, as the music swells to commercial. After the commercial, we get a captain's log. It's been 10 hours now. Engineering and medical crews have been aboard the sleeper ship conducting various tests. Meanwhile, in sickbay, McCoy is working on our one casualty. Whether or not the others can be revived rests on this, and McCoy is impressed at this person's physical and recuperative power.
So not only is MacGyver fawning over him, McCoy is kind of too. And then Kirk asked if there are any records or logbooks on the ship. And aboard the Botany Bay, Scotty says, no, there's nothing. And I don't know how he could tell this, but he says that they were in suspended animation when the ship took off. Like, how can you tell?
I think the assumption was that there were no records or logs.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Was because that they were in suspended animation.
Yeah.
From the time they launched.
Gotcha.
That's my guess.
And 12 of the units failed, and so they died, so they only have 72 left that are alive. 30 survivors being women. I don't know why that was important, but he mentioned that as well.
Because it's very important to a bunch of people who want it to be 1960 again, that we all know what's in each other's pants. That's right. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kirk does take a moment to like recognize the awe in the situation. A group of people from the 90s, that's quite the discovery. And, perhaps they can learn from them and fill in the gaps of history that poor records from the war left.
So he still can't find any record of the vessel in any of the libraries. And the particular model of this vessel, it's called a DY-100, I think was designed for interplanetary travel only. So star travel, I guess, in the 1990s was impractical or considered impractical. So why is there no record of the trip? And then Kirk mentioned something. The name Botany Bay was the name of an Australian penal colony. So he was wondering if these are criminals,
right?
Somehow.
He called it a penal deportation vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And if that didn't make me think of buses full of people headed towards the Mexican border, it sure did. But
and poor Australia. Don't they always get Australia?
They never cause anybody any trouble.
Right, but they send all the criminals to Australia.
Spock argues that your logic is flawed to think it's a penal deportation vessel because, he's like a group of criminals could have been much more efficiently dealt with than investing all of their, the most advanced spaceships of their time on sending away criminals. He's like, they wouldn't have done that. So that's probably not what this was. Spock says he doesn't have any facts at all, though, and you have to have some facts to formulate a hypothesis. He actually says theory. I don't know if you noticed that a few times in the episode. And, he's using theory casually in I have a theory about such and such. This is a thing that in science communication, people need to learn the difference, between, right? Because when we say the theory of evolution, it's sort of capital T theory, which means we've investigated it. We've run all the tests against it and it still holds true. So it is the closest thing we have to knowledge.
A fact, yeah.
Where a hypothesis is something very different, right? And people tend to use theory to mean like, I have a theory. No, you have a hypothesis. You haven't tested it yet.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Yeah,
sure.
But even though I do know the meaning of both,
I just thought it was interesting for Spock.
Yeah.
I would expect Spock to be like dictionary in a wing.
And also he's given hypothesis before without having all the facts, but this time he's hesitant to do so. Yeah, he says like even theories need facts, and so far he doesn't have any, and that irritates him, or so Kirk says. And he says, I'm Vulcan, I can't get irritated, basically.
So the Enterprise will tow the Botany Bay to Starbase 12, and Kirk is headed down to get some answers. Down in sickbay, McCoy takes a device from a medical tray that this nurse is holding, and there's that Ecolab's chemical spray bottle again.
Still, OSHA needs to talk to them about that, I swear.
Kirk comes in and learns that our patient will live, and he tells McCoy, like, way to go, Bones. But McCoy says, I'm good, but not that good. And he kind of explains how this guy has this incredible health and healing power and strength, too. He says he could easily lift them both with one arm.
And he wants to know if his brain is as matches his body.
Right. And they talk about how, like, well, this is what the eugenics war was all about, right? Breeding better and better humans.
So he's obviously enhanced in some way.
Right. MacGyver's comes in and she wants to make sure he's going to make it. And Kirk takes this opportunity to, like, dress her down for her performance on the away team.
Oh, eye roll.
Like,
I know.
he lights into her about how like she finds this man compelling personally, and she cuts him off. She's like, no, professionally, not personally. She's like, I'm a historian. Just imagine what it must be like to have a specimen from the past here alive.
But his little jealousy thing comes out. He's like, well, he says men back then, they were more adventurous or bolder, more colorful. And I'm like, dude, let it go. Because this is not really even about, she didn't do anything wrong, really. This was just about him. It's like, it's not often that there's like another man that other women would lust after on the show.
Right.
So it's like, but he's like, thank you for admitting this. If I can have honesty, it's easier to overlook mistakes.
Meanwhile, our visitor is waking up now, and he's got a headache this big, and it's got Excedrin written all over it.
I forgot how, like, so this is Ricardo Montalban, the guy that was on Fantasy Island. Now, when Fantasy Island was on, he was already quite much older. And I just did not realize how handsome he was. I mean, back in the day, man, it's no wonder, like, freaking MacGyver can barely keep her uniform on. So, yeah, he was pretty handsome back then.
So our visitor goes to get out of the bio bed, and he's doing, like, some weird Tai Chi there's some
yoga?
shit stretching.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Never saw it before.
And then he overhears McCoy calling down to the lab, and he notices this shadow box displayed on the wall that has like old medical torture tools from long ago.
Also, like, not safe. You shouldn't have that just sitting around in medical bay.
Like, I get the whole I'm just an old country doctor thing, but like, even in that movie, when they sneak into the hospital, he calls their methods cruel.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Why would they even have this on the ship? Is McCoy the kind of character, the kind of person who reveres old torture tools enough to put him in a shadow box on the wall?
I wouldn't want him as my doctor.
Anyway, there's a knife in that box, and of course that's why they needed the prop. So Ricardo grabs the knife. McCoy gets up from his desk and he goes to, find Ricardo in the bio bed right where he left him. But when he goes to lift open one of his eyelids, Ricardo grabs him by the neck and holds him at knife point. McCoy is great here. Even in the face of death, he's got to,
he's such a sourpuss.
Fire off some licks. He says, well, choke me or cut my throat. Make up your mind. And Ricardo's like, wait a minute, English? I thought I was dreaming that I heard English. So he asks McCoy, where am I? And McCoy's still...
He's still sour. He's like, you're in a bed holding a knife to your doctor's throat.
Yeah. So Ricardo's like, answer my question, smart ass. And McCoy says, well, it would be most effective if you cut the carotid artery just under the left ear.
Smart ass till the end.
And Ricardo's like, I like a brave man. Bitch, McCoy's not brave. He's just stubborn.
Yeah, he's just
There's no bravery in that. He's just being stubborn. McCoy confirms that he had been sleeping for 2 centuries, and Ricardo is like, fetch your captain. I have questions. So Kirk arrives and introduces himself, but Ricardo isn't quite ready to share his own name. He wants to know where they're headed, but of course he doesn't know what or where a Starbase 12 is. And then he wants to know about his people, and upon learning that 72 of the life pods are still functioning, demands that they be revived too. And Kirk's like, yeah, okay, as soon as we get to Starbase.
This guy is like, obviously he is the leader and he likes being in control, so he's not going to do anything he doesn't want to do.
We finally learn now that his name is Khan.
Yeah, that's all he says though.
Yep.
Nothing more. Kirk continues to try to question him, but he's like, when did you lift off? What was the nature of your expedition?
Yeah.
But he still is like, oh, I've got a headache. I'm tired. I can't answer any more questions.
And McCoy even says, like, it may be later, Jim. But I thought it was clear from Khan's face that he was manipulating them. At this point, sure. I could tell.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But then what do? They are like, okay, yeah, you can rest a little bit. And then...
how would you like to read very detailed technical manuals on how this ship operates?
Exactly. Like, so I guess Khan says, I was once an engineer and would need something to read.
Mm-hmm.
So since I was an engineer, I'd like to study your ship's technical manuals. And then Kirk and McCoy like, okay, here it is. And then they slide the little view screen around and kind of like they did to the guy with the crazy eyes, whatever that episode was of you. And they let him access all of the ship's information. I'm like, why?
Right.
No.
What are you going to do now? Take him up to the bridge too?
Yeah, exactly. Haven't they learned? They've not learned. There's no protocol still against that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So Kirk arrives on the bridge to find Spock is watching what Khan is reading on his little view screen. And again, Kirk brushes it off as like, this is a common courtesy. Like he's going to have to get caught up on a lot of time that's been missed. But really, Jim, starting with the technical manuals of the ship, you didn't suspect this guy at all. Come on.
No, I mean, come on. He knew that Landru was a computer, but he didn't see this coming.
Right. Kirk also wonders aloud if Khan might be the product of selective breeding. And that's certainly a possibility. So they discuss here that there were a group of these GMO people that simultaneously seized power in over 40 nations. And they talk about how like nobody accounted selecting for superiority would inherently breed superior ambition. And so essentially they created a whole breed of Napoleons, they say.
Yep. And I think he said, he's about the right age for that to have occurred. I think we said it was in 1993. And so Spock did some research and said that there were about 80 or 90 of those supermen GMO people that were unaccounted for. And this might explain who the people were on the ship. But the fact was not in the history books. He had to apparently dig for it.
Right. Down in sickbay, MacGyver's has arrived now to meet Khan. And she's got a lot of questions for him, too. He already knows who she is, though. And he's like, I've been studying up on my starships, but the books don't say anything about hotties like you.
He's like, come over and sit and entertain me. So condescending. Ugh.
And she tries to like move on and back to business, but Khan's like, and why do you wear your hair up like that? It's so unflattering.
This whole thing pissed me off.
Yep.
She says it's comfortable, but he says, but it's not attractive. Like, because that is what the woman's purpose is to be attractive to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So along with his arrogance, he brought along his misogyny, but they already had misogyny anyway on the ship. So then he takes it upon himself, and this is a really cringe moment, is T goes and rearranges her own hairstyle. So he starts pulling at her hair, and he moves her over to the mirror and just I'm sorry, so many infringements on personal space.
Yep.
She's clearly uncomfortable, but I feel like they portray that as sexual attraction on her side, which
right.
I hate watching these. I hate watching these scenes, but she's clearly uncomfortable. But it's to the audience, I think they think it's sexual attraction on her side, and she tries to leave and says she'll come back when he's, ready to talk. But then he grabs her and he tells her he's glad she came and to come back.
Yeah. Cut to a banquet room, or perhaps a redress of the conference room. They've got a spread out now for dinner.
Hey, look, they've got your food.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Those colorful square things?
Colorful squares, yeah. They're Knox blocks.
Huh?
They're Knox blocks.
Knox blocks?
You know Knox blocks. Come on.
No, I don't.
What? It's a Midwesty thing then. It's a gelatin, like Jell-O, but blocks. You can cut it into blocks, and then I don't know. That's what we've always called them, Knox blocks.
Cool.
Anyway, they got a big spread out. Everybody's in their uniforms. And we find out this is Marla's idea to welcome Khan to our century.
After she's been sexually assaulted. Hey, let's give him a party.
But Kirk's pretty sure, like, he thinks she's got the hots for Khan too. Like, this isn't all purely historical interest,
And it's not.
Of course not. Khan arrives in Marla's quarters and gets right down to flirting. She's got her hair down now, and he talks about, like, exactly how you would expect him to talk.
Yeah.
He inspects her various paintings and notices that they're all powerful men from the past. Richard, Leif Erikson, and Napoleon. And then he uncovers her current project and finds that it's him.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, his ego loves this shit.
And he's happy that, hey, you changed your hair for me.
Mm-hmm. He comes back over to Marla and he's like an eighth of an inch away from her, like right up on her, and says, "Be careful, such men take what they want." And then proceeds to lift her chin and kiss her, but her hands are up his back and she's kissing right back.
Yeah.
At dinner, Kirk asks Khan again to tell them about their journey, and Khan starts, spinning webs about adventure and how there was little left on Earth. And Spock gets into a little back and forth with him. Spock's view of history is like the war was against tyranny, but Khan was on the other side and saw not tyranny, but an effort to unify humanity.
He called the time like a time of great dreams and great aspirations. And while they were like a bunch of dictatorships, he said one of them would have ruled eventually, like Rome under Caesar.
Presumably himself.
Yeah, him. Yeah. And he clearly doesn't like Spock's questions. And he tells Kirk, you're an excellent tactician. You sit here and you have your second in command question me while you just observe. And then Kirk mentions that Khan likes to use lots of military terms. He said, but this is a social occasion. But then Khan says, well, social occasions are only warfare concealed.
Kirk says, you fled. Were you afraid? And you left at the very moment mankind needed courage. And that gets Khan fired up. And he's like, we offered the world order. And as soon as Kirk says we, Khan realizes he's been had. And he excuses himself from the party.
Oh, I got another headache. I'm fatigued. I'm too tired.
So Khan is pacing in his quarters when Marla rings the doorbell, and she's come to apologize for the way everybody's treated him.
Somebody need to talk to this girl and just say, look, stay away from him. But
big red flags.
Yeah.
He comes on fast, and she pushes him away, and he gets big mad because he got told no. And, tells her either stay or go, but do so because it was what you want to do. And she decides to stay. Girl, run.
But he's like, no, I want you to, now you have to ask to stay. You can't just decide you want to stay. And he's a master manipulator. So she does ask to stay. And I just felt humiliated for her in a way. But then he kind of forces her to her knees. And this
reminded me a lot of God damn it, what was the name of that book that everybody in the world got into because it was all hot and sexy and
gray, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey, that's it. Yeah, this has a lot of those vibes.
Yeah, it does.
I want you on your knees in the corner and don't look at me, and
the dumb submissive role. And I guess I see it kind of like a sexual assault, but whatever.
It is.
So yeah, he forces her to her knees, and then he tells MacGyver's that this is when he tells him, okay, I intend to take over the Enterprise, and you're gonna fucking help me. She doesn't really want to, but he just bullies her into doing what he wants. And
he offers her his hand, and then when she takes it, he starts crushing her hand. And she goes down to the floor in pain. And
she's
damn,
just victimized in a way. And so part of her is afraid she's going to lose him. Part of her is afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she's like, I'll do whatever you ask.
And so she's like, don't put me in that position. And he throws her aside and tells her to leave. And isn't that just like a man? As soon as she's not willing to play along, she's gone.
Mm-hmm. But her fear of losing him makes her go back and say, okay, I'll do it. Yep. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want.
Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Scotty are gathered in the conference room discussing Khan Noonien Singh, to be exact. Now we know. This was a little confusing to me because it seems like they've found the previous unavailable data on this guy.
Right. Because he said it wasn't in the library, but they found it somehow.
Right. And we find out that from 1992 to 1996, Khan was the absolute ruler of more than a quarter of Earth, from Asia through the Middle East. And Scotty's like, I always admired that one.
Okay.
Hang on.
Yeah, hang on.
Did Scotty know all about Khan this whole time?
Yeah, okay, so he was a ruler. How would you not? That's a big part of history. So how would that not be in the books? I think they're
right
flubbing stuff here. But yeah, so then they have this big discussion about, like, do you admire them, or, do you like them or whatever? And Kirk's like, he was one of the best tyrants and the most dangerous. And he says they were indeed superhuman of sorts, like they're stronger and braver. And Kirk and McCoy said something about his rule lacked the usual massacres, but still. Okay, so he didn't kill a bunch of people. But
Spock's just like, hey guys, maybe Hitler worship is a bad look.
Yeah.
maybe we don't worship Hitler. So they're trying to, argue that you can admire Hitler while still being against him, Kirk said.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree. Like, so I think whatever this worship that they're doing, I think Spock called it romanticizing it. Yeah. I don't agree. I mean, there's nothing about Hitler I would admire, and I'm totally against him. So I feel like if you're against someone, you don't admire them. Yeah. I don't know.
Yep. Anyway, Kirk calls in security to put a 24-hour watch on Khan's quarters. Cut to Kirk walking into Khan's quarters, and they've put Khan in a fucking uniform again.
Yeah.
Again, do they not have civilian clothes or fabric to make some on the ship? And they must, because just last episode, we were all period 19th century costumes or whatever it was.
Well, and then just for dinner, Khan had something else on.
Right.
So they didn't have to put him in a uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. What little one must do to get a Star Trek uniform.
But here in the real world, it's really hard
to
get a Star Trek uniform made properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Khan is meditating when Kirk comes in. So they have a conversation about the evolutionary advancement of the human species.
Mm-hmm.
Khan is surprised how little humans have evolved in all this time and maintains that as a GMO, he is still superior in every way. As Kirk leaves, Khan says something about how, like, he's confident now that his people will do well in this century. And I was left to believe at this point that Kirk is kind of aware that Khan poses more of a threat than originally thought.
Now, yeah. But he still doesn't think, oh shit, I let him read all of everything about the ship, but he's locked him in his quarters. So when Kirk leaves, Khan's doing this whole meditation hand thing again, and he's
highly overacted.
Yeah. Yoga / Tai Chi / something. And he goes and forces the sliding door open somehow, and then he knocks out the guard and he takes his phaser. Meanwhile, I guess he and MacGyver's have already planned this ahead of time. She's in the transporter room holding Chief Kyle at phaser point. This allows Khan to beam over to his Botany Bay ship to revive the rest of his people.
Right. And then cut to the sleeper ship. All of the other GMOs are awake now, and they're all lined up for gym class, and they're all doing this like stretching yoga, Tai Chi stuff. Yeah. And Khan tells them it's time for war again, but this time, not just a planet, the whole universe.
And this is where we meet like his main henchmen, like Joaquin, and then one woman named Katie. I know there's 30 women, but they only show one.
Back on the Enterprise, security radios up to the bridge. Khan has escaped, and not only that, he's cut off communications and locked out the turbo elevators, Spock says. So Kirk runs over to a panel where some officer is working and like shoves him out of the way to fiddle with the switches. And like he's like, oh, atmospheric controls are cut off too. That was not a good look. I didn't like that. Like, go shove the guy off of his console so you can flip the switches. Bad look.
Yeah, Picard wouldn't have done that.
No, never. He would have said, "Pardon me, can I use that console, please?"
Right. Oh, Gray.
But they're locked off from engineering, so there's nothing they can do about it from there. And naturally, Kirk calls down to engineering, and Scotty tries to answer, but engineer has been taken over by GMOs.
They knocked out. Poor Scotty gets knocked out. Khan is like, he demands that Kirk surrender or die of suffocation because he's cut off life support. And then Uhura can't even get through because communications are also down.
Kirk tries to flood the deck with some neural gas, but that's offline too. And Spock's like, see, I told you it was a bad idea to let that guy read our technical manuals.
What the fuck?
Dumbass.
What the fuck were they thinking? I guess there's some intruder control mechanism that they have that they can just flip a switch and it does floods gas or it initiates some protocols to save the ship. But yeah, because Mr. Khan was real thorough.
He's got him by the balls at this point. And he does say, though, that he's willing to negotiate. Which
is interesting. He wasn't murderous.
Right.
But he was really, 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 really manipulative and evil.
Yeah. We open Act 4 with a captain's log. The GMOs have discarded the Botany Bay now that they have the Enterprise. And they thought there's a potential story gap here, too, in The Wrath of Khan. Aren't they found on City Alpha 5 in the Botany Bay ship?
Was it maybe? I don't know. Maybe they somehow got their ship back. Because they just let it go. And they didn't blow it up, but I guess they just let it go. And then we know when they put them on that planet, did they send them down in the ship? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Gaps, definitely gaps.
I'm gonna have to watch them like back to back. I should watch Space Seed and then Wrath of Khan, like back to back.
Or any listeners out there know anything about this gap? Like, let us in. Chime in. Let us know.
On the bridge, Spock is still hanging at his station. Uhura's passed out on the floor, and she's showing a lot of leg.
Yeah.
Kirk records commendations for Lieutenant Uhura, Technicians First Class Thule, and Harrison, Lieutenant Spinelli, and of course, Mr. Spock. And as soon as Kirk says that he takes full responsibility, he passes out. Khan has the senior staff minus Kirk gathered in the briefing room for he's evil monologuing about how technological improvements are fine, but advancements to the species yield the best results. And Scotty's refusing to play along. I loved Scotty in this scene.
Scotty had all the balls. Like, I love it. I love it.
He's like, where is our captain? And Khan orders Uhura to work the view screen controls. But she's not playing either. I love her in this episode.
The look on her face, she was like, I'm going to knock this motherfucker out. She shows her defiance. It's all in her face. And then Khan has one of his minions drag her over to the console.
That was some pretty, that was good acting.
Yeah, it was on her part and his. Yeah,
but seeing Uhura treated like that made me pissed off.
Yeah, it did. It did, especially with the slapping.
Yeah.
So he drags her over to the console, and her face again says like, "I'm about to throw some hands." But then she gets slapped, and that did bother me. That struck me in a place where I'm like, I know this isn't real, but it did strike me differently than But he goes to slap her again. Now, MacGyver's is in the room, and she jumps up and she says, no, she's not going to allow him to slap her again.
Yeah. There are a couple of things that jumped out at me in this scene. First, I started thinking about Marla, like, they're just using her, and, you think she's got to know that they see her as inferior, too. But Khan's done that thing men do so well, and he's got her believing all kinds of shit. Right.
Everybody else, just not you. You're special.
Yeah. Right.
She's bought it. And what's really strange to me is like doesn't seem to have any conscience that they're all in there because of her. Like, she's a party to this, and she's betrayed her Starfleet oath and all this, and for some dude.
Right.
Yeah.
This was also like the second or third time that Khan has been like, oh, I made a mistake. Like, I guess I thought he was presented in kind of like an infallible way. But here he is again, like, I guess I underestimated the heroic camaraderie it would cause by suffocating together on the bridge. And
he's so evil.
And then he's like, and it's one thing to suffer it yourselves, but it'd be quite another thing to watch somebody else, maybe your captain. And so then on the view screen, we see there's a decompression chamber and they've got Kirk strapped inside. And the pressure is dropping to create a vacuum. Khan offers Spock the chance to join him, but he stays silent. And then he evil monologues about how they're going to help him find a suitable colony planet, one with a population willing to be controlled by the GMOs. Marla interrupts and she's all like, yeah, I don't have to watch this, do I? And he lets her go, but he says he hoped that she would have been more strong.
And he didn't even question that she might not be 100% with him.
Yeah.
So she goes out of the room, and then a few minutes later, I think he's still evil monologuing, and the feed cuts to the decompression chamber, and Joaquin is about to slap Uhura again. And he's like, get the picture back. But she refuses to respond, but he gets ready to slap her, but Khan stops him this time. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Kirk's probably dead, and Spock's going to be taken next to the decompression chamber.
So it looks like Marla's finally had a change of heart. She shows up down at the decompression chamber and tells the GMO guy, what's his name, Joaquin?
No, Joaquin is the one slapping Uhura around.
So
I don't know the other guy.
He tells the other GMO that Khan wants him to watch Kirk closely in case he decides to cooperate. And as he turns his back to her to look into the chamber, she injects him with a hypospray and he goes down. And then she repressurizes the chamber and lets Kirk out. But she begs Kirk not to kill Khan.
Girl, she's like, now I saved your life. Please don't hurt him. Bitch, no. I don't think he answers really because he hears them bringing in Spock. And so they hide behind the door. And when Spock comes through with the guard behind him, he jumps the guard.
And Spock takes him down easily with a nerve pinch.
Yeah.
Kirk and Spock quickly strategize their plan of action. They need to get the intruder controls back up, and there's a junction nearby that they can work from. So the plan is to flood all of the other decks with gas.
So they're going to basically knock everybody out, including the crew.
Back in the conference room, Khan is on the intercom trying to call his guys, but nobody's answering. And then the gas starts coming in through a vent. Scotty makes it out, and it looks like Khan holds his breath and makes a run for it, but everybody else collapses in the gas. Spock calls up Kirk. The gas was shut off in engineering, so we think Khan must be there, and Kirk's on the way, and everyone's going to retake the ship while the GMOs are passed out. The only problem with this is that Khan was listening in the whole time to their intercom chatter. And so he's ready.
He knows Kirk's coming down to engineering.
Yep. It jumps him as soon as he gets in through the door. And there's a fun bit of prop work here. Khan takes Kirk's phaser and crumples it up like he's demonstrating his, GMO strength.
I knew he was strong. I didn't realize he was that strong.
A little warning light goes off, an alarm starts going, and this was the tamest. If this was supposed to be some kind of red alert, this was the most calm beepy flashing light I've seen on the show ever. So the little warning goes off, and Khan says, if he understood the technical manuals correctly, that's an overload that will soon blow the ship to bits. And Kirk tries to make a jump at the console, but...
Star Trek fight!
Good old Star Trek fight. They throw each other around engineering for a few minutes until Khan tells Kirk that he's got 5 times his strength. This is pointless. And Khan makes another run at Kirk, but Kirk's pulled this doohickey out of the engineering console.
Yeah.
And starts
what the fuck is that?
Beating the shit out of Khan with it. What was that thing?
No idea. Just something handy.
I guess. Khan, unconscious on the ground, Kirk races over to engineering station and shuts down the overload just in time.
Saving the Enterprise from destruction.
The command crew enter the conference room, now in dress uniform again, but this time it's to hold a hearing to determine the fate of Khan and the GMOs. Oh, Khan and the GMOs. That's my new band name.
Khan and the GMOs?
Khan and the GMOs.
I think this is a mistake, obviously. At this hearing, Kirk decides to drop all the charges against Khan and his people, saying it's a waste to put him in a penal colony, and he gives him a choice of taming the uninhabited world of SETI Alpha 5, which he accepts, and he starts saying, have you read Milton, which is, I guess, the author of Paradise Lost,
right,
where there's a quote that says, it's better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. And so, I mean, that's kind of what he wanted in the first place, but he wanted an inhabited planet to take over.
To
but
rule,
then,
yeah.
but so they've given him his own planet all by himself, which I think is worse, or could be worse. He gets what he wants in the end, sort of.
The end of our episode, Spock sets up Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. He says, "It would be interesting, Captain, to return to that world in 100 years and learn what crop has sprung from the seed you planted today."
He gave Marla an option to either be court-martialed or go with Khan, and she chose to go with him. She's out of her mind. Khan warned her that it's going to be hard to survive, to find food at first. I don't know what her fascination is with him, but she chooses to go with him.
In the movie, do they ever mention her?
I don't remember. I'm gonna go watch the movie today.
Yeah, because if he encounters Khan again, and like, wouldn't Kirk want to know if MacGyver's was still alive in the Wrath of Khan? I don't know. Anyway, we'll get to that eventually, I'm sure. Let's talk about the humanist themes in this episode.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous God, if all this makes a God.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
I don't know.
I had a lot of concerns about this episode.
I did too.
I think this is another one of those, if you know Star Trek, you know Space Seed, right? Everybody knows Khan, like, even if you're not a giant Star Trek nerd. But like, I wondered why this episode chose to portray eugenics the way they did. Like, these GMOs were held up as better because of their selectively bred strength and intelligence. But, the real world examples we've had of that have never been, in any kind of positive way. Like, the select group always ends up oppressing the non-select.
Right.
Always.
Right.
And so I just think they could have approached that topic with more of a lean toward like how eugenics tends to play out versus whatever it was that they did here. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Yeah, especially being so close to the time in history of Hitler and the Holocaust. I mean, it was only, 20, less than 30 years.
Right.
I'm even surprised that they broached the subject, but yeah.
There's an idea here they present that's, I don't know, it's not quite the noble savage trope, but it was like they were saying that Khan and the GMOs are like inherently good people, but were corrupted by their genetic engineering.
Right.
Rather than seeing them as just like villains.
I think Spock said that because of their advanced, whatever engineering or advanced abilities, they were going to have advanced ambitions as well.
Right.
And so it was only natural for them to want to take over and do that kind of stuff. Like you said, that noble villain trope thing, like, yeah, it's okay. They weren't killing everybody, but at the same time, they're still evil.
There's another thing. There's a premise that you need to accept for this episode. And I don't know that they make the case strongly enough, but I feel like as a viewer, you have to buy into it for the ending to make any sense. So Kirk doesn't turn over Khan and the others to Starfleet Command. They just dump them on a planet. Like, that read as out of character to me, unless you look at Khan as a victim of his genetic engineering and not as a powerful lunatic.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that premise, I think, for this episode to hold anything. Yeah. So, like, if you accept that premise, then Kirk is making a decision to give these people another chance, a fresh start. Although, again, I feel like there's probably a way to bring them back to Starfleet with a plan of action for rehabilitation and reintroduction into society. Like,
yeah, why didn't he do that? Why, like, have them stand trial officially instead of holding a trial on
board the ship? Yeah,
I felt like it should have been up to higher ups in Starfleet. And like what would we do if we had a Hitler today?
Yeah,
are we gonna like just let him go and have him rule someplace? Here's an island.
Yeah.
And here's some of your people. You guys do what you want.
Yeah.
You're not penalized for anything that you've done in the past. So I don't know that I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't like it. Giving him a whole planet to conquer.
Right.
That was just, I don't like it.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, again, that kind of brings us back to those questions we've talked about before with like Dr. Adams or whatever, what does rehabilitation look like?
Yeah.
If we took the option to rehabilitate them and reintroduce them into society in some way, then what does that rehabilitation look like? And can you force people into it?
Yeah.
We've had that conversation a few times.
Yeah. Do you put them under some kind of mind control or whatever?
Yeah.
Brainwashing, hypnotism to force them to do what you want them to do? Yeah.
And then there's the whole Marla MacGyver's thing.
Mm-hmm.
My initial reaction was, I thought maybe she was portrayed as too easily captivated by this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But recent events have made me rethink that position completely and like totally understand the power dynamic and his, he's a captivating character.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Charismatic,
how easily
powerful.
she fell for him. Yeah.
That there's something to be said for having power and being able to have people do what you want them to do. Even if they don't want to do it, they feel compelled to because you're a leader or whatever. And there's a bit of fear too. And maybe a little bit of admiration too. But yeah, that whole thing, it made me cringe just because my eyes are open these days to things. And as they like to say that Star Trek is woke, it's always been woke. But yeah, that wouldn't fly today.
I would hope not.
Actually, no, it would. Actually, it happens a lot. I think just people are being more vocal about, hey, I was taken advantage of. But it probably happens all the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, did anybody die in this episode?
Not really. I mean, I can't really count the 12 people in the pod. I think they had died already. So
right.
So I wrote no bars for anyone.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay our percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
All right. Well, then we'd like to once again thank all of our patrons. We appreciate you all so much. Thank you for supporting this silly little idea we had. If you're not a patron, please consider becoming one. You get early access to all the episodes, and we've got some different merch and some patron-only episodes that are not available in the main feed. And you can do that at patreon.com/humoustrek for as little as $3 a month. And that really does help us out. We sure do appreciate all of you. We also appreciate the people who tell other people about the show. And so we would appreciate your help with that as well. You can share out episodes on social media, tell people about the show if you like it. And that helps us reach more people. And we would appreciate it very much.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, let's bring Becca back in for the exciting answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. Last time on Humanist Trek, you asked us...
We have heard most of the music used in this episode before. Can you tell me which episodes the recycled music came from?
I'm glad I wrote it down because I would never have remembered had I not written it down.
I'm glad you wrote mine down too.
I said The Cage. How do you want to score this? Do you want me to say one and you tell me yes or no and then we'll add the points?
Yeah, I can give you a point for each one you got right.
Okay. The Cage.
Ding, ding, ding. Where's the bell?
It's right here. Charlie X. And Balance of Terror. All right, I got 2 points. How many were there?
2. It was just Charlie X in the cage.
Hell yeah.
Sorry, Allie.
Never mind.
Allie needs to start trusting Sarah's instincts if she wants to catch up or not get left in the dust.
I assume you don't, that you're guessing. And
I am totally guessing.
Okay. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. Most of the music was taken from Charlie X.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are tidbits from the cage.
Next week, we'll be reviewing A Taste of Armageddon. A computerized war fought by 2 planets ensnares the Enterprise. We even did this on the last one. What do you remember about this episode? Anything going in before you've watched it?
A Taste of Armageddon? No. Nothing really.
I feel like I remember the story. Like I remember that premise.
I remember the premise but I also remember the premise, not necessarily from Star Trek, but I think another sci-fi show actually did this type of premise. I don't remember anything specific about it.
Okay, so what's our question for A Taste of Armageddon?
Crewman DePaul played a different role in previous episodes. Who was he?
Who was Crewman DePaul? Which one was he?
Yeah, see, I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, let me think.
It's got to be one of those basic white guys on the bridge opposite Sulu.
Or maybe it was one of, what's his name, Khan's henchmen. Khan had like a bunch of dudes. One of them was named Joaquin. I don't know.
All right. Did we give you answers?
Joaquin and whatever you said, I don't remember, Sarah.
I don't know any of their names is the problem.
Yeah.
There's like the guy that's opposite Sulu now.
Okay.
Before Chekhov comes in. It's like
basic white
just
guy.
a basic white guy on the bridge. That's what I think.
Extra number 2. Okay.
That's what I think it is.
Is that what you think it is?
One of those guys.
Okay. And Allie thinks it's one of Khan's people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be one of Khan's
All right. Well, see you next week. Giving it away.
Where we won't get a second chance. It's wrong. It's wrong.
All right. We've locked in our answers. If you want to play along, no cheating, no Googling, set a course for your nearest social media, except not on Twitter, and post your answer. Use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge. We'll pick our winner. Next time on Humanist Trek, Season 1, Episode 24, A Taste of Armageddon.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Trek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.